We're happy that you're able to join us for today's Brunch and Learn with the AIS's most recent in-kind partner, TECT. With us today, we have Evan and Bob. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to them. Thank you so much, Evan and Bob, for being here today.
Thanks, Ashley.
Well, hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great forum. We're excited to have some of your time today, and we're going to hopefully make it well worth your while. My name is Bob Habian. I'm an architect, an entrepreneur with a lot of experience in manufacturing, startups, technology. I've been a CEO of a couple companies in the past in New York and in Silicon Valley. And I've had a pretty atypical architecture path, I would say. But I've been where you are. And I was a student director for the AIA in California. I was the AIAS chapter president back in the day. And then what's called the intern associate director in California to the AIA board. So familiar with the organization, certainly familiar with the education of an architect, and then I've had a pretty interesting path since then, and I'm excited to share today with you.
My name is Evan Troxel, and I am also an architect, and I have also had kind of a non-traditional path. I've been all over the place with regards to my career since graduation, and I also taught at Cal Poly Pomona, where I went to school for about 10 years, and I was teaching emerging technology classes as they relate to students in the architecture and design program there. So I'm, like Bob, kind of well aware of what it's like to be a student. And I think one thing that's kind of different about us that we see in the profession is we are so excited about talking to you guys today. You are the future of this profession. And I think that's part of our message really today, is to talk about what's possible in your future with a career in architecture, wherever that may lead, because it could lead so many different places. So I think that's probably enough about us. There's definitely more we could talk about in the future. We would love to continue this conversation beyond today. But as professionals who've been in the industry for a couple of decades at least, we have some insight into what it's like to work in this profession. And we want to bring that insight back to you to hopefully jumpstart what's possible with your career.
Well, let's talk about time travel. I mean, imagine, say 30 years from now, architects were able to come talk with us today about what's ahead. We would love to tell our younger selves when we were in school what we know today, because trust me, it would have been a much different journey had we known then what we know now. But while we can't do that with ourselves, we're excited to be able to share that with you. So consider us some time travelers that have been out there in the industry, and we're reaching back to share some of this with you.
One of the things we wanted to do was talk about your dreams and visions, about where you see the potential for yourself and for what you want the practice of architecture to become. Work-life balance for practicing architects. I mean, there's a huge movement going on right now. We just saw that article in the New York Times, pushing towards sustainability with innovations in materials, sustainable design, creation of space in architecture, carbon neutral built environment. Yep. These are the topics of the day. Everything done in VR and in simulations. So a bit of where we're headed next in this presentation. Undersourced areas in the city, stronger development of those. This is awesome. So one of the things that is now on everybody's radar is this whole idea of the metaverse. This was not anywhere on our radar, and it probably wasn't even on your radar when you were starting architecture school, unless maybe you're a first-year student. But the reason we really want to bring this up is because we're really being pushed to go digital everything. We see it on the internet. We see tons and tons of data. We're all on Zoom today instead of in person. So we're really feeling this. And again, like anything is possible in the metaverse, and there's very different constraints operating in the real world. And when we design real buildings for real clients and real people.
And some of you may end up in that metaverse and may be metaverse architects. Others, more than not, I would assume, are going to be in the real world, and some are going to be a blend. The point to be made here is that in the real world, the constraints to pull off your creative ideas are massive. And being able to implement your vision into reality in the built environment, as you probably have some insight already as architecture students, there are a lot of things to know. There are a lot of people involved. There's a lot to do. And in the real world, it's real dollars. It's real risk. Health, safety, and welfare is what we're going to be licensing all of us to be able to manage and help with. But once you pour that foundation, good luck changing it, right? There's no meta about it. It's a very real thing. So your education, your internships, your early stage career is really about equipping you with what you need to be able to navigate that real world and implement your creative ideas. But here's a problem with the process that we've experienced along the way and the one that you're probably already in. And that is that we're equipped typically and trained to be self-sufficient, coming up with your own content, submitting your own projects, determining what areas of research you wish to pursue. And while that's good from a personalization standpoint, it's not a good process if you want to actually see things achieved in the real world. At the end of the day, even one project, a small project, can have hundreds of products, dozens of participants. And in many projects, when you're talking about a $50 million or $100 million project, it's thousands of everything in all directions. It's not a solo journey, and there's an awful lot that you need to know. But there's only so many hours in a day, and you simply are never going to be able to know what you need to know. And what we end up with is a bunch of data overload, right? And so it's just too much information, too little time. And for most of us in our career, and most of my peers, thousands of folks in my network, I think we would mostly agree that we were pursuing that information and knowledge base, assuming that we had to know more about all of that. And a big point I want to share with you is that you don't.
So what do you guys do when you've got a new project for a new project typology that you've never done before? What do you do if when you've got a new client in a new location? There's new constraints, no matter what the project is, and you never know what that's going to be when it comes. So everybody's familiar with this, right? The start search page on google.com. How many times a day do we use this? We use it for everything, right? This is something I think that we can all relate to. And our search results, something simple like concrete block. Let's say we're talking about using that as a material on our building, 2.2 billion results. So where do you go from there? I don't want to have to try to filter through 2.2 billion search results on my own, obviously. But again, ideally, you want to talk to somebody because people have knowledge, people have experience, and people have wisdom. And that kind of stuff is not encapsulated in a Google search result page, typically. This is just raw data. And so again, I know you can all relate to this because this is how you've been taught to find the answers. But what we're here to show you is there is a power in the people side of things because of the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom that they have. So when you start to think about your personal network of people, what does that look like?
Yeah, so ask yourself, right? How big is your network? How many followers do you have? How many connections have you made? And for some of you, it might be a really big number. But the issue is that most of those connections, most of my connections, most of your followers, these are kind of like meta relationships. How many of them do we really know? It's really important for you to consider early, not only who is in your network, but what's your relationship with the people in your network? How personal is it? Are you maturing those relationships, or are you just racking up numbers? Because what's really going to matter in your career is the quality and the depth and breadth of the relationships you have, not the connections you have. So you can stop the solo journey right now. First year student, just stop the solo journey of the idea that you need to go this alone. You don't. There will always be the information on Google. It's not enough. It's not the right information. The key is to join the information with the people. But there's one area that's most critical, and this is a really important distinction today and for the rest of your career, frankly. And that is the relationship that you have with the manufacturers and the product experts at those manufacturers that make the products that buildings are made out of. I'm not talking about engineers, consultants, owners, contractors, or others. I'm talking about how much can you know about the very products that you're working with. And at the end of the day, architects know so very little about the products that we use that if we really care about sustainable outcomes, if we really care about high performing projects, kind of makes sense that to get a high performing project, I'd need to understand the best practices, the best products to use and how best to use them.
I have designed hundreds of thousands of square feet of buildings. Like Bob said, those buildings are all made of parts that somebody else makes. Contractors assemble it and put it all together, right? There is no way that I could ever know enough about all of that stuff, especially when projects take years to happen. There's so much to know, and you can never know enough as an architect.
And so this is about you not knowing how bad it is that we know, and us telling you there's a way to not have to endure that kind of pain and suffering. It just needs to be done in a different way. But it's that simple. Don't try and do it alone. Engage others with knowledge, and we can all move forward.
I recently reached out to a friend of mine who's a senior specifier at a firm up in Portland. And so I asked her, what is something that she could tell students? And what she said, totally unprompted by me, was very similar to this message. So I'm just going to play this. It's less than a minute of what my friend Charisse has to say about this.
Maximize your product representatives. I just saw them as salesmen to avoid for a very large period of my earlier career. They know more about what you're doing with whatever part of your building you're designing than anybody, because that's their product you're putting in. And you want to talk about cutting your workflow, cutting your time in half to get something done. Pick up the phone and say, help me out here. I'm putting your roofing system in, or your weatherproofing. And would you mind taking a look at this detail? They'll do all of these things for free. Do I have this right? It doesn't even cost you anything, and it cuts your time by sometimes anywhere from 20 to 90% on what you're working on. And then you learn in the process about how things need to come together on a building with all these different products you have to put together.
I think what Charisse had to say there is awesome. Architects sell time for money. We are in a service industry. If you can do something in half the time, like Charisse says, would you choose to do something in half the time? I wish I would have known this early on in my career, instead of spending so much time looking for information on the internet and still not knowing if it was right. So this is about people. This is about relationships. It's about knowledge and experience over, more importantly than the data and the information that is out there. It just doesn't tell the whole story. So we're starting something at Tech called the Peopleverse. It's your Peopleverse, which is a network of people.
Nothing like this existed when we graduated. And so we didn't have the option of networking and jumping on LinkedIn and finding those experts easily. And there are tens of thousands of manufacturers in our industry. Even using tools like LinkedIn, really difficult to find the right person to talk to about a product or a system. And frankly, I don't even want them knowing who I am. But that's kind of hard to do in a lot of these platforms. I've been on this problem statement since I was a student. I recognized early in my career how utterly dysfunctional the industry is. And I started asking, like, who's going to fix that? And what ended up happening was the more I asked, the less I found as an answer. I've intentionally served in roles to help understand what it would take to put together a solution that actually was built to the needs of our profession, that addressed the very different needs and concerns from supply, contractors, engineers, architects, and others. So we're building a platform for everyone in this industry. We're partnering with some very special partners. So we're honored to be a national partner to the AIAS, the AIA, groups like the Center for Innovation in Design and Construction Industry, and others. So we're building this for you. We're going to be sharing a lot about what's possible through this network and these tools over time. Today is simply an introduction. The point that we want to drive home, and we've made it multiple times, I'm sure you've heard it enough, but The sooner you begin the process, the sooner you open up your potential to truly believe that whatever you can imagine designing and doing is possible. And that rather than trying to learn your way there, you need to learn how to engage the expertise to do the vision that you're conducting. The more you do that, the earlier you do that, doors open. Because I was in leadership as a student, by the time I had graduated, I had more offers and opportunities than anyone else I was in school with. And it wasn't because I was that good, it was that I was that connected that early, and it makes a difference. So the more connected you get, the more opportunities you'll have for internship options, job options, travel options. Connecting with the real world while you're still in school, the door is opening and the Peopleverse is the path there.
So just to reinforce this, we are building a platform for you to connect with people in the building industry and build those relationships, which we really honestly feel is going to help this industry in ways that it cannot do by itself. Like there's just no way that all of these firms and all of these companies working independently of each other take the time to step back and look at the profession and the industry as a whole and say, it really needs help. That's what Bob and I have done. We stopped working in the profession so that we could work on the profession and help everybody. And the only way this is possible is by somebody actually doing that. So really building that network, building it with real people, not just connections on the internet. That's why we're building this. And it's specific to the building industry. So we want to invite you all to join the Peopleverse today. If you go to that link, tech.com/students. We're extremely excited to include you and activate you and your potential in the building industry. I know that you guys are the future of this profession and that you have the ability to drive the change that you want to see. And by building your personal network with real people, with real relationships, that is going to be accelerated. That is the shortcut. So join the Peopleverse, join us so that we can design this with you together. We don't have all the answers. Bob and I do not have all the answers. We want your input to make this thing be what you need it to be so that we can see your dreams realized in the profession of architecture. So that's really where we want to see you guys. We want to see you in the Peopleverse. Please join us there.
Let's take a few questions. Love to hear from anyone that would like to post some questions.
I was just curious, what are the next steps in the Peopleverse? You were mentioning that we're going to move forward and stuff like that, and we're like the early adopters and stuff.
So next steps at this moment are to grow the network. And so we're growing the network with students, with architects and engineers, with manufacturers, and with associations in the building industry. We've partnered with AIAS. We're going to continue to work with your organization to understand best how to onboard you. I would say within a few weeks, we'll have an ability for you to begin to create a profile with some really cool things about it. One quick example. If you go fill out a profile somewhere, it's just basically your contact information, the school you go to, whatever. Okay, but kind of like Google, that doesn't tell us much. It tells us where you are, who you are. But things like for an internship or a job, what parts of the country or other countries would you want to be known? And so we've built something called Tech Geo that allows you to say, you know what, here's who I am, here's where I'm going to school. This may be my hometown, but this is a geo footprint of the area or areas that I want to be known. And you avoid the areas you don't want to be known, and you set your footprint. That's one example of the tech platform that's empowering options. We'll begin to build connections then between that whole supply side and practice industry to bring them to the table early and allow connections with you. So right now, manufacturers around the world are offering scholarships, grant money, and other things. And because you don't know them, you probably don't know all the offers that are there. So we'll be bridging some of those opportunities to students from the practice and kind of real world side earlier than later. So for now, I would just say generally, we want to set a low bar of expectation on your side, understand you're at the threshold of something that us and so many people in the industry understand is a profound opportunity for us all over time. And then we actually want to build this together with you. So some of the things that will happen is we'll have some more sessions online where we show you more insight. You begin to engage in the platforms and give us your own feedback, because we can build a lot of the features that you would want along the way, and that's how we're doing it for the practice side as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really exciting notion, actually. Thanks for answering that question.
I do have a question. Hello,
Go ahead,
thank
Joseph.
you for presenting today. This is an awesome idea. I was curious because you had mentioned a similarity to LinkedIn, but then there are going to be some differences with this Peopleverse. Is it more just to create connections and then we communicate with people outside the platform? Or will there be like a Zoom component to this as well?
So a little bit of both. The things that we do beyond a LinkedIn connection, for instance, are very fundamental to our industry. For example, if you're a manufacturer on LinkedIn, I'm not going to be able to know too much about how to even find you in the first place. On the TechTap platform, we associate that product professional with a company, with the geo footprint of where they are available to be connected with, not just
Okay.
what office do they work from, and then what product or products are they expert in. That's something that LinkedIn doesn't do. And then from a current feature set, we allow architects and others to inquire with those folks in 3 ways: direct email, direct phone call, and then a stealth option for communicating. And it's much like Craigslist email, where your email to them would be obscured and anonymous. That protects you from them responding right back and hassling you, if you will.
But our goal, Joseph, is to facilitate you guys building relationships with people, and how you choose to communicate with them is pretty much up to you. Our goal is to set up those connections and make them real. And so when you need information, you know where to go to find it. And that's really the purpose.
Yeah, this isn't about advertising, and getting your information and all that. It's the opposite of that. We want to be neutral, facilitative, and unleash the potential that's always been there by building a platform that helps connect the resources and the experts to make that possible.
I just want to say, because we're architects, we've been through the pain of this process, and that's why we're building this for architects and for the future of this profession, which is you guys. This is something we wish that we had. So that's really the why.
Last quick point on the what's next is that we're going to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
So if you've registered into the Peopleverse, welcome to the community. We're going to be in touch with you. We're going to start to engage, and we're going to take this journey together. And by being early adopters, what's going to happen in hindsight, I believe, is years from now, you're going to look back and go, what a difference that made in my life, my career, and the doors that opened. And we're going to do this together. And so we welcome, if you want to email us anytime, get in touch with us, let us know. And so it's bob@tech.com or evan@tech.com. But you'll hear from us through the AIAS in follow-up to today. And we're super grateful to have this chance to share this with you.
Yeah, and thanks for the great questions and the engagement. Thanks for telling us what your goals and dreams are for the profession. We definitely want to help make that happen. If you guys think of other people you want to share this with, please do share that link out if any of your friends missed it.
You've got more forum conference ahead. And again, we thank you for the opportunity. And we just need to sign off and let you go.